Welcome back. President Trump's decision to attack Iran over the weekend wasn't totally embraced within his party. There are many who are unhappy with the president backtracking on a campaign promise not to engage in more foreign conflicts. And this is all happening as the GOP rushes to find common ground on the president's so-called big, beautiful bill before a July 4th deadline. So let's talk about with our friend Brittany Martinez, Executive Director of Principles First. Up late with me tonight here on the Final Five. Welcome back. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me back.
Okay, I always like to ask you, do you get any, when you see the headlines, does it bring you back to your time on Capitol Hill at all?
As I was driving here today, I was like, I'm so glad I don't have to deal with this right now.
Yeah.
What a mess. As a staffer, you know it's a mess. You can't talk to the press and say how much of a mess it is, maybe off the record. But as a former staffer now, I'm like, what a nightmare. I'm so glad I don't have to deal with that right now.
Was there anything back in your time when you worked for Speaker McCarthy in terms of military action that this reminded you? Because I don't think we've gotten to this point, but it's always been a very big priority for Republicans not to engage in conflict.
Not that I can recall off the top of my head, but there were plenty of times where it kind of was coming down to the wire again, the July 4th deadline, and so it is a little bit of Groundhog's Day, and we see that all the time in Congress.
I want to point out, too, as I phrased that question, I said Republicans don't engage in conflict. I would say that I'm ignoring 2003 and everything since. Another story for another day. But you mentioned July 4th. I mean, I think what's interesting is the reaction we've seen since the attack. People like Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, who, you know, ride or die with President Trump. She was not happy with him. But, you know, unlike the Democrats, who you had Al Green and AOC calling for impeachment, you know, they sort of speak their piece, but know that the president, really, especially this president, is going to do what he wants to do.
Absolutely, and I was really surprised by Marjorie Taylor Greene. I think there's very few times that she's come out against the president, and then she made it very clear, and she put up a tweet of a conversation with a reporter, and she was like yelling at the reporter. It's like, no, I still stand with President Trump. It's not surprising. The president's going to do what he wants. I think that's what we know him for. I think that's why the American people voted for him.
July 4th is his deadline that Susie Wiles put forth to pass the big, beautiful bill. It passed the House by a single vote. Priorities are different for House Republicans than they are for Senate Republicans, though, and it looks like if they change too much in the Senate, it might go back to the House, and the question is, does it get passed at all?
I saw that Valadao and some moderate Republicans sent a letter to Thune and to Johnson saying, like, hey, this isn't going to work for us if we're going to get cuts to Medicaid and all of these things. So I think that a version of this bill is going to pass one way or another of the big, beautiful bill. I think that the Senate is the Senate, and they know that they're the big dogs on campus and that they can kind of do what they want and they can strong-arm the House. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens and who stays strong. I think that the president at some point is going to have to come in, but I do see that the senators are probably going to hold out for what it is that they want.
One of the things that for, I believe, Valadao and Mike Lawler of New York, a big priority is the state and local tax deduction, which it was, I think, that the Senate version or the House version was going to cut that back, or there's that discrepancy out there, and they're calling it a non-starter. And it's these deep in the weeds things that could threaten it, but there's also a lot of, I talked with Congressman Don Beyer a couple months ago, Democrat from Virginia, obviously people know, and he said, look, there's things in this bill that I like, and other people have said there are things, but by and large, that's the thing. Is it easier for Republicans to look at the bill and sort of hold your nose on the things you don't like, or is it more of a principled stand to say, I'm not going to vote for this because of A, B, and C?
I think that there is an opportunity to take a principled stand and say, you know what, this isn't conservative. I'm a conservative, and this is a bill that's going to be really expensive. But we don't see people really doing that nowadays, unfortunately. I wish that we saw more people doing that. I think that this is an opportunity for folks to take a stand. But when it comes down to it, I think that it's going to pass in some form, as I said. And when it comes to the House, you know, the House, they're scrappy, and I'm a house mouse. I've only ever worked in the House. That's what I like to call myself. I think it's derogatory to say hill rats.
No.
House mouse. House mouse is cuter. So yes, I'm a house mouse, and so I love the House. I think that a lot of great work gets done there. I think the Senate is a lot slower than the House, so that's also a reason why I like the House so much. I think that there's going to be a lot of back and forth, and I think it comes down to what happened last year when Trump said, I want one big, beautiful bill after he'd won, and the House said sure, and the Senate initially said we should do two bills. And I think we're seeing the problems with that at its core, that perhaps it should have been multiple bills that were single-issue bills, which we are always saying, especially as conservatives, that we need to be voting on single appropriations bills or single-issue bills.
Okay. Brittany Martinez joining us from Principles First. Good to see you again.
Thanks for having me.
We appreciate you. And stick around. Final Five is back right after this.